I do want women to know that there is an alternative to suppressing their bodies with hormones, that they can see their body as a good and they can live in that body holistically.
Totally. Oh my gosh. It's amazing.
Join co-hosts Jamie Rocci and Teresa Kenny as they educate women about the beauty of the feminine design and empower women to take charge of their health.
They're going to be so amazing. You're going to be so empowered by understanding your feminine genius and your hormone genius. I don't think I could live my whole life knowing this and not sharing it with anyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hormone Genius podcast. I am Jamie here with my co-host, Teresa, and also we are here with Sara Paxton. Sara, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited.
Yes, we are so excited to talk to you today about metabolism, gut health, blood sugar. We're going to just jump right on in. I know Sara because she went through the Fiat Institute's hormone coach training, and it was just a joy to have her in the program. And it's been even cooler to see her now after completing the program. And she has a background, of course, in additional health coaching. She is a certified health coach, like I said, again, specializes in gut health, the founder of Nourish Health Coaching, and she also has a podcast. So it's been just a joy, Sara, seeing you grow your health coaching business. And I just can't wait for our listeners to get to know you more.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're going to dig right in. Let's jump into why gut health matters when it comes to hormone health. Let's just start there.
Absolutely. So gut health is, one of the foundations I often talk about in my podcast, the three-legged stool. And for good optimal health, we need the stool to stand sturdy. And the one leg is gut health, the other leg is hormone health, and the third leg is metabolic health. And I feel like if one of those legs are off, it just throws the whole stool off, right? And so our gut health, I honestly did not know anything about gut health when I was going through pharmacy school, because it was something that I maybe, later learned a little bit about probiotics, but that was it. But when I started suffering with my own gut health, like I was just exhausted. I had brain fog. I was moody. My poor husband and kids were having to deal with this extreme moodiness. And it was starting to affect my hormones some, but not to the degree that I'm seeing today. But basically what it means is our gut health is, we basically have these microbes in our gut and actually all over our body. And there's more of their cells and more of them than there are of us, which is like absolutely fascinating to me. But what we need to realize is with our like standard American diet, so often we have more, bad bacteria than good. And this bad bacteria like robs us of feeling good, having this good energy and having these good moods and having normal cycles. And so what I really try to teach people is we need to change that. We need to get more good bacteria and less bad by changing our gut health. And that will in turn affect our hormones, affect our cycles. It very much is responsible for, how we are metabolizing our hormones. And if we're not having good gut health every single day, we're not feeling well.
So Sara, I have a question already. Like I'm already putting myself into my nurse practitioner hat, sitting in the chair in front of the women. I almost want, and I don't know if this is possible, but I want to actually divide these women up into three different categories, because to me, these are the three categories of women that come in. If there's going to be a gut health problem, it will look like this. One is the woman who has kind of like urgency with her bowels. Like she has a lot of loose stools. She feels like she's got no control of her gut health that way. So everything's just going and going quickly. Number two would be the gassy, bloated all the time female, where they don't necessarily have really any bowel issues, but they just feel bloated and gassy all the time. And number three would be the overly constipated woman that cannot go unless she dumps, every type of magnesium down her body and then some. So I feel like those are like the three kind of most common categories that I see as a nurse practitioner. And I would love to know like how you start to work with them. And I kind of want to know each category and what you think more of the root cause is for each different thing. That's a lot, I know.
Sure. Yeah. You bet. So no, absolutely. And what's so incredible about all this too, Teresa, is that so many times women can actually be dealing with poor gut health and not even necessarily have these symptoms that you just spoke of. Like maybe they're seeing it in their skin, maybe they're seeing it in, again, how they feel every day. Maybe they're depressed or have anxiety, right? So, but the first thing, the very first question I'm asking most of my, women clients is, what are your digestive systems? Yeah, are you dealing with more, the and everybody's been maybe labeled IBS, but it's IBS constipation or IBS diarrhea predominant, So no, it's different for everyone. Obviously, for that first one, you're talking more the, urgency and whatnot. What is happening in every single one of these cases, though, is again, we have this what's called this dysbiosis, which means we have more bad bacteria than good. Okay. And what's maybe causing the constipation in one and the diarrhea in the other, which actually a lot of ladies go from one extreme to the next too. But what's causing that is a certain bacteria, right? And so, yeah, you can do stool testing and all that to kind of see. But so often, what we do is just start eliminating some foods. And I hate to use the word eliminate because so many times we get really restrictive, and restrictive is really hard to stick with, right? When we get restrictive, it's just like hardly anyone can stay with that. So I often say limit. We're going to start limiting some foods that can, cause that certain type of symptom, whether it be diarrhea or more, constipation or more bloating. And so we're going to start, looking at like gluten, dairy, your artificial sugars, your refined sugars. We're going to look at those things. But the first phase is always called the remove phase. And so there might also be, I work with a nurse practitioner that helps me along with this, but we do some herbal antimicrobials. So what they're going to do is they're just going to basically go in and naturally, again, it's those God-given, substances that he put on the earth to really help us to get rid of that bad bacteria that's been causing these symptoms. And it can be a little hard at first for these women because sometimes symptoms get a little bit worse before they get better for like 3 to 5 days. It's called this die off. But yeah, it's basically going to help kill the bad bacteria. Sometimes with the release of endotoxins and whatnot, we can feel a little crummy. But what I typically have them do is just start real slow and we slowly increase these herbal antimicrobials. But yeah, oftentimes if you're, like things like oil of oregano, things like, wormwood, black walnut hull, those types of different antimicrobials are super helpful at killing off that bad bacteria and just really getting rid of, those symptoms of like that bloatingness and gas and constipation and all that.
I have a follow-up question, Sarah. So would you categorize, so we're talking right now about kind of the more loose stools or IBS-D is what we call it, IBS diarrhea. And I was just explaining this to a medical student yesterday because she asked me, and this is something I don't think we've talked about on this podcast, but she's like, can you tell me what SIBO is? And so I was kind of explaining the reality of dysbiosis and how SIBO is just this overproduction of bad bacteria in the small intestine. And I'm like, I think GI doctors are getting a little bit better at kind of testing for this, but really it's the underlying root cause of IBS-D. So it's not really, to me, SIBO is what the root cause of probably most IBS-D is. But can you explain to the listeners what SIBO is? Do you use that term? I know that you can use antimicrobials like herbals for that, but I also know there's a medication to it for it as well. And I use that sometimes too in my practice.
Yeah, so SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And what it basically means it's overgrowth of bacteria in the wrong place. So we have a lot of these microbes in the large intestine, but then they ascend to the small intestine. And yeah, the symptoms can be right, more of the diarrhea predominant, a lot of gas and bloating. But what I have found to be one of the biggest, I guess, game changers in the SIBO world is this concept of, stopping grazing. Grazing became this kind of this thing that started, I don't know, it was kind of a fad even 20 years ago to really just eat 6 small meals a day. But what happens is that's basically feeding this bad bacteria all day long. Something that's very interesting to note is that good bacteria, when we fast and when we take breaks from eating all the time, good bacteria thrives. They do just fine. But the bad bacteria suffer. And so when we can allow what we call this migrating, the MMC, the migrating motor complex, to do its job of getting this bad bacteria out of our small intestine and cleansing, having these, it's basically these waves that it gets the food out of the small intestine. If we allow that MMC to do its job, which it typically takes about 4 hours for that to happen. So I tell people, try not to, if you eat at noon, try not to eat even a snack if you can, especially if you have SIBO, before 4 o'clock. You have to let that MMC do its job so that you're able to really get rid of the food and not, again, just continuously feed that bad bacteria. So that's one of the first things that we really work on, is just not a lot of that snacking.
Hmm. Um, that is a very good tip and something that doesn't cost anything to employ into your life. Just wait 4 hours, people. And, our listeners and anyone that you're working with, Sara, will know if it helps, because their symptoms will decrease. That's what's so beautiful. Our body speaks to us through the symptoms we have. And so we want to listen to them. We don't want to ignore them. So SIBO is one of the health issues or gut health issues that we're talking about. What are some other common gut health issues? We talk about get gut dysbiosis, but specifically focused around even estrogens and hormone balance, and we're going to focus too, Teresa, you had mentioned constipation, but I want to hone in kind of on this idea of not eliminating our bowels, what happens with our hormone balance then, and what women can do about it as next steps.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say one of the things that was so eye-opening to me when I first started helping people with their gut was how many women came to me and said, I can't believe how much better my cycles are. And that was kind of the reason that I really started thinking I need to do more of a hormone coaching program, because I couldn't believe, I'd heard there was connection or whatever, but how many people, like I had, one gal that, she was going through fertility treatments, had stopped, and then was able to have her period again and get pregnant. One who was just having terrible heavy bleeding and whatnot. And just by fixing her gut, how she had manageable periods again. And so that was really eye-opening to me. But I think the big thing is the ability of our body, right, to get rid of estrogen and to metabolize estrogen. And so, right, it's so important that we have a bowel movement at least once a day. But it's very important too that we just actually have the gut bugs that we need in our body to be able to do that, right? And to be able to do it well. And a lot of times people will, you know, think of gut health and think, oh, I just need to start a probiotic or something like that, and oftentimes I'm like, well, that's not really the first step, because it's almost like planting a garden in a bed of weeds. We first need to really remove those weeds. And because obviously you have way too much bad bacteria. So you're just throwing good bacteria in a bunch of bad bacteria. We want to get rid of the weeds and then plant those good garden veggies, those good, probiotics, the ones that help us to metabolize our hormones and help us to have daily bowel movements and really just get that gut function working again.
I'm going to take a quick break for our podcast sponsor, We Heart Nutrition. And speaking of gut health, we want to make sure whatever we put in our gut is high quality and is able to digest and absorb. And we know that our sponsors, We Heart Nutrition, take such care and effort through research and science to make sure that their products are so healthy and bioavailable in our bodies. Jamie and I love We Heart Nutrition. I'm right now working on taking my perimenopause multivitamin. It goes down so well. I feel great energy all day. And we want you to have great quality supplements as well. So please check out We Heart Nutrition. You get a discount for 20% off with the code GENIUS, 20% off your first order with the code GENIUS. All right, Sara, this is such good practical information. I love the weed. Jamie loves the garden also analogy. We have brought up the garden analogy quite a bit when we talk about the cycle. So I love the weed analogy and throwing probiotics. And I've always kind of had this love-hate relationship with probiotics. It's kind of like that thing that you're like, yeah, do it if it helps you. Don't do it if you don't want to. I don't really have this like strong feeling sometimes about it. And then the reality is because I've seen a lot of things where it doesn't really do that much. I've seen a lot of women take them and then they don't really do that much. So if you had mentioned that probiotics may be the right ones that actually help us digest our food. So give us a 101 on probiotics and what you know.
Yeah, you bet. Well, again, when we're doing this whole process, I typically do. I'm going to kind of back up before I go straight to the probiotics. I typically do a four-step process, and that includes the first phase is remove. We're wanting to remove that bad bacteria in any foods that are feeding them. The second one is replace. So maybe that person, because of bloating and whatnot, doesn't have good digestive enzymes, maybe not good stomach acid. Stomach acid is so important, and we're really hurting that by doing things like acid reflux meds and whatnot. And then the third step is reinoculate. So that is more the probiotic step. Okay, that's when we're going to add in the probiotics. But we want to get through those first two steps. So again, we've kind of cleared that garden of the weeds before we plant in that good garden veggies. But yeah, I will have people that start a probiotic and actually feel worse because, again, I think it's that they have too much of the bad bacteria and they're just throwing more bacteria on it, and it's just causing this problem. And so I usually say one of my favorite ones is it's Therabiotic. It's a complete probiotic that I really, really, really like, and people do very well with it. Yeah, and so I will generally say once we get through that, basically that kill phase or that remove phase, you can start adding that back in. And sometimes people will even say, they'll have their own probiotics that they want to, try out or finish or whatever. And so I just take a look at them, and I like to see, of course we want, like I usually say 20 to 50 billion colony forming units at least. Again, once we've got through that remove phase. But yeah, I'll have them send those to me and just kind of look at their ingredients and whatnot. And it is funny how many they'll say, I didn't do really well with the probiotic before, but after we've gone through these steps, now I can tell a difference. Again, I have good energy. I have good bowel movements. I have good skin again. My skin is clear. Even eczema, things like eczema and psoriasis. I just can't believe how your skin issues clear up so beautifully when your gut is working right.
Sara, this is such good information. I love like the numbers. Like these are the 4 steps. This is the order in which we go through this process. It's so, so helpful. Before I bring in like blood sugar and glucose and that kind of thing, talk about the importance of fiber in our diet and how fiber can help, how too little fiber is an issue, how too much fiber might even be an issue, and what is just right in terms of what we're aiming for fiber in our diet.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And as far as talking about what is right, that can be hard because for every person, it might be a little different. And when I'm first working with so many of my clients, they cannot do, raw vegetables hardly at all. And we have to cook a lot of them because they're just really having trouble digesting them. But I think that the interesting thing with fiber is really how it can that good bacteria then helps us to produce with the use of this fiber these short chain fatty acids. And short chain fatty acids are so good at like helping us to have good energy. And so we have to have that fiber along with it to really get produce these short chain fatty acids. You can also take short chain fatty acids, but the goal is we don't want to be taking supplements, all the time. Like the goal is to eventually just eat the foods and not to say that I'm not taking supplements. I definitely take my fair share of supplements, but yeah, if you're eating good fiber, you have a good microbiome, you're going to produce these short chain fatty acids. Some of my favorite sources of fiber are the cruciferous vegetables because I feel like they are so good for our hormones as well. And those are things like cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli. I feel that those particular vegetables provide the fiber we need. They're helping with, that dim that we need and just really giving us good hormone balance, helping us to move our bowels. So yeah, and I would just say if you are a person that is not getting enough fiber, just really focus on, trying to incorporate some cruciferous vegetables. If that's something, I'm usually like, if you hate them, that's really hard. We try to eat the veggies that you at least can handle because you're going to stick with that longer. But no, just trying to get those in with every single meal is really important. But everybody's going to be different. If you start to notice some gastrointestinal, discomfort when you're taking those different eating those different fibrous veggies, then you might have to do some digestive enzymes or just even cook them before eating them.
This is a good, I just want to share a quick thought here. For people who are wondering, do I have gut issues? And is this worth looking into? I would say what Sara just said is one really good clue. If you eat fresh vegetables and you have bloating or stomach issue, or even fiber bars. I mean, I cannot handle fiber that doesn't come from a vegetable. I bloat and it's terrible. It's so bad. So I think it's also knowing that sometimes in an effort to be healthy and to increase our fiber, we look for the sources of fiber that we think will be easier to eat. Like you just mentioned, it's easier to eat the food than get the supplement. But I'll just tell you, for the longest time, it's embarrassing to say, like even as a college athlete, when someone says, "Oh, increase your fiber," I didn't realize that that meant like eat more vegetables. I mean, there's fiber in
Mhm.
like oats and things like that, but I didn't know that. So I would go to like eat those freaking Fiber One bars, and I would just suffer terribly. Like I need to eat fiber, but I was so uncomfortable. So all that to say, if you're eating fresh vegetables and you feel like garbage, that could be a tip and a clue. There's gut dysbiosis. There are ways to restore your gut. Take a break from eating that food and cook your vegetables first. Number two, don't go for the external fibers if you're looking to restore your health first, which is what I tried to do. It will cause you so much suffering. Okay, so I wanted to share that.
And your
Teresa,
and
I
your
see you.
partner. No, and it'll
I
cause
s-
your partner suffering, your husband suffering too. I mean,
exactly.
I cannot tell you, I won't mention the name of this company, but there's a company where it's like you lose weight on it. I'm sure people will know what I'm talking about. And they have like the particular snacks and high protein bars that you eat through the day. How many people have come to me and said, "Oh my gosh, I lost weight, but the gas that I had from those was so terrible." And I know that, is it inulin, Sara? I mean, like, can you give
Yes.
us like what is the difference between natural fiber from food and the fiber that they put in a lot of these like protein fiber bars or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah. So no, it can be the inulin. So inulin is a prebiotic, okay? So inulin is a prebiotic that is not absorbed, and so it's basically when it feeds the good bacteria, but it also it can just feed bacteria. So again, if you have this, overgrowth of bad bacteria and you're eating inulin, it is causing major bloating for sure. And Jamie, I love what you said about the Fiber One bars because I was totally a consumer of one of those. And funny enough, I think those, if I remember right, contain sucralose as well, which can further contribute to our gut health issues.
And people that chew gum, like I would try to eat sugar-free gum and it would be terrible. And it's because of these artificial sweeteners, sucralose,
Yes.
probably in these specific gums. So don't suffer, people. Just put the sucralose away. Put it
Yes.
away. Oh my gosh.
I have a story about sucralose. I don't know if it's not probably not true. I don't know, but at this point in my life, I'm willing to believe anything. But I had this patient who grew like a fibroid, uterine fibroid, right? Benign tumor in the uterus. And she was convinced this thing was like at least a cantaloupe size, maybe more, that it was because she was eating massive amounts of sucralose, and it was even a supplement she was taking with sucralose in it. But do you have any, like, is that just, I was like, well, I mean, it's sugar, like artificial sugar. I'm like, maybe things grow with this stuff. But what is sucralose and why is it not great for our health?
Yeah. Oh, man, this is a hill I'm willing to die on. We have to get sucralose out of our food system. I am not a fan, so I do think that maybe there is very much some truth to what she was saying. First of all, it's a chlorinated sugar molecule. Okay, that right there. Should we be eating or putting in our bodies a chlorinated sugar molecule? Probably not, right? The second thing is it's so disruptive to that gut microbiome. So I once had in my functional medicine classes, the instructor told me that being on sucralose, which when most people are consuming it, they're consuming it daily, it's like being on chronic antibiotics. We know what chronic antibiotics does to our gut. It basically, just gets rid of almost everything. And so again, we're just going to have, and a lot of times when the gut bacteria comes back, especially because of our standard American diet and because of eating all this, sucralose and these different chemicals, it's going to be bad bacteria that namely comes back. And so any woman that is, consuming sucralose, I'm like, you have to start reading your food labels. You have to get that out of your diet. One woman, just from watching that video that Jamie was bringing up earlier, I did a sucralose video with my son where we went into Walmart and we basically looked at. I had him video me. I just had this wild hair when we walked in because I'm seeing everyone shopping and I'm just like, so many women think that they're buying the right things and they're not. And that was me. I mean, no judgment. That was me. The Fiber One bars, just all these, health foods that I thought I was doing better. And I was actually causing my gut to be worse off and having more dysbiosis. But we got this wild hair and I was like, Drew, can you video me? And we're just going to like go through the aisles and I'm going to pick these like health foods that women think are health foods and show them why they're not. And so we did, and so many people, commented on this video and shared it and was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm consuming these things daily." And so that was really eye-opening. But I had one gal that particularly reached out to me. She said, "I've simply cut out sucralose, and I have lost 10 pounds, and I feel the best I have." And that's all she cut out. I mean, that's amazing to me. So, right, it's one of those things that I think we think we're doing so well, but then we, realize, oh my gosh, I got to start reading food labels. I got to see these things, it'll say sugar-free, low sugar. So many things will say gluten-free, and we immediately think it's healthy. No, gluten-free junk food is still junk food. And zero sugar doesn't mean zero consequences. We're still going to feel the effects of these chemicals in our foods.
Give us a top, like, what do you think the most common sucralose foods that people don't realize have sucralose in them? Like, what are like
Yeah.
common things that like you're like, oh, just grab in because it looks like a health food?
Yeah, totally. A ton of like coffee creamers. That one is a big one because I remember when I was starting to really get healthy, one person said to me, look at your coffee creamer. And I was like, really? I hardly use any. And I just didn't think it was a big deal. No, it's a big deal. Your coffee creamers are full of a lot of bad things, carrageenan, just a lot of bad gut disrupting chemicals. But no, I would say a lot of like even your condiments. So ketchup that says like lower sugar ketchup or lower sugar barbecue sauce or zero sugar. Celsius drinks. Oh my gosh, the energy drinks that have it. Crazy. This is an interesting one. So I'm going to kind of go off on a little side note here. The other day, I was looking through my phone, and of course, it is always bringing up these health articles for me because of obviously the algorithm is working. And the article that came up it said something like the top 10 protein drinks that have more protein than a chicken breast. And of course, I'm immediately like, oh my gosh, I'm so anxious to see how they ranked this, you know? And I look at the top two, I think, were one of them was Boost protein. And I'm just like, oh, Boost and Ensure. Like, no, don't, they're not. Okay. But the top one was Core Power. Okay. Core Power has sucralose, it has, but honestly, this is what we have to remember is if it can sit on a shelf, if it is a drink like that, like a shake, and it can sit on a shelf for months, clearly they're having to add preservatives and things to make it shelf stable for months that again it increases their shelf life but it is decreasing our life. Right, we have to really consider the fact that those, especially those pre-mixed protein drinks, I'm often like, you guys, you need to look at the label of all your protein drinks, but honestly, mixing your protein drinks yourself is a much better option than buying the ones on the shelf. But yeah, so many health things. Like I'm just amazed at the protein powders and whatnot that contain sucralose as well.
So frustrating, Sarah. Okay, also like diet sodas too, right? People are thinking, "Oh, it's diet, so I'm gonna do this." And there seems to be like in the diet soda world like different sweeteners within some of them. So I don't know how you feel about stevia or stevia, but Zevia drinks I love because it's stevia sweetened, monk fruit sweetened beverages or sweets. So what, from your perspective, are there harm in using things like monk fruit and stevia? Are there things we should be looking out for? And what are other artificial sweeteners besides sucralose that we need to keep our eye on?
Yeah, great question. So that's the thing. So many times we'll hear a podcast or listen to something and hear of all these things we need to be cutting. But I try to tell people in the world we live in today, yeah, there's a lot of junk food, but there's also so many good substitutes today that we can turn to and not feel so limited, not feel so restricted. And so stevia is one of my favorites. I do love monk fruit and allulose. I think that both of those are pretty good as well. You do have to be careful. Erythritol is one. There's been some, yeah, kind of negativity on it lately. So I'm telling people to stick more with like the monk fruit. But I think an aspartame is one that you definitely want to stay away from. But I think with those alternatives too, it's everything in moderation. You still have to really, not go crazy on the sweet treats, but allowing yourself those things once in a while and using those substitutes can be such a great way to transition out of using those, again, refined sugars and whatnot. So yeah, I think just really learning to and that's what we do in the program. That's what we're really working on is what are some healthy swaps that don't make it feel restrictive. So yeah, stevia and monk fruit are kind of my go-tos right now that I think most people tolerate really well and enjoy.
Okay, so let's go on to blood sugar because I know Jamie really wants to talk about blood sugar. Okay, I'm going to bring blood sugar up by giving you a patient again like this because this just came up to me. I have a pregnant patient. It's a little different because she is expecting, but she was noticing that she was having a hard time sleeping at night, and she asked our nurses, could this be blood sugar related? And so I guess let's just start with why is it important to have stable blood sugar? And, is there, symptoms or consequences of having unstable blood sugar? And we can use pregnancy as an example, but in general, obviously, we know this is important for everybody.
Yeah, blood sugar is one of my favorite things to work on my clients with because even myself, I would have not considered myself to be insulin resistant, but I was showing signs of it. And when I was able to do continuous blood sugar monitoring, I was able to really pinpoint those places where I needed to tweak, right? So oftentimes when people are waking up in the middle of the night, it's due to the fact that whenever we have a blood sugar spike, we often have a dip that comes with it. And in that dip, our body wants to stay in this homeostasis, right? So when we get too low, basically our adrenal glands are like, what's going on here? And they're going to release cortisol and glucagon and adrenaline. That usually happens, those peak about 4 hours after that dip. So when people are waking up in the middle of the night, it's typically because they have cortisol and adrenaline running through their body. Two things which you definitely don't want running through your body at 2 a.m., right? And so I usually say, okay, let's look at your last meal or what you last ate before you went to bed. And the goal is to get optimal sleep. You stop eating 3 hours before you go to bed. It gives your liver time to process that meal so that the liver can do more regenerative type, processes when you go to sleep. But also, it's you want to basically not have that blood sugar spike and dip before you hit the pillow, right? So we're going to really look at what did you eat? And if you are eating after that 6 p.m. meal or 7 p.m. meal or whatever, why? Is it because you're not eating enough at supper? Are you not getting enough protein, healthy fats, complex carbs, that kind of thing, that it's making you hungry and you're eating later? Or is it, a lot of times we're working on a lot of the Christian aspect of it too. Is it because you're bored? Is it because you're sad? Is it because, like a lot of times we use food somewhat as an idol. We're using food as like when we should be turning to him, we're using that instead. And so we really work on those things as well. Like, why are you really eating? Were you truly hungry? Because food was put on the earth for nourishment. And so those are the things that we really look at to see, okay, this is probably why you are waking up in the middle of the night. Is it often is a blood sugar issue.
So what would be let's say I eat my meal at 6 p.m. Okay, and I have healthy fats and I have healthy, good, high protein, good quality protein, and I try to sleep and I still have issues. Okay, and so then I think, well, maybe I just need to eat a little bit more. If I had to eat at night before I go to bed, what would you suggest that food kind of being?
Yeah, my go-to is pistachios because pistachios are a healthy fat that's not going to raise your blood sugar in the night and they have melatonin in them naturally. So pistachios is kind of my go-to. If you are going to have, something at night, I would recommend my go-to used to be popcorn, but popcorn really raises my blood sugar and I would have issues with sleeping a lot of times those nights. And so, yeah, now it's more like I'll snack on a handful of nuts if I need to. Because again, it's just not going to raise that blood sugar and cause that dip and adrenaline in the middle of the night.
We have more people interested, obviously, in continuous glucose monitoring. Can you give us a little bit of information on how you approach that? Like how does somebody get a glucose monitor, the ones that are called CGMs, outside of a doctor's order, in a sense? And is that something you do for 2 weeks, a whole month, 3 months? Like, how much information do we need before we can get kind of like a routine in place and we understand the level of kind of blood sugar instability and what your needs are for that?
Absolutely. So I think the one that I typically go with is the Stelo. So it's on stelo.com. And it comes in, you get two monitors and each of them lasts 2 weeks. So it's basically a 28-day product. It costs around $90 to $100. Okay. And to me, the best way to do it is for sure do obviously the full month. A lot of people end up enjoying it and learning so much from it that they keep doing for about 3 months. But what it does, to me, what's so awesome about blood sugar monitoring is, again, God made us all so unique and we all metabolize carbs differently, right? So what we get to see when we do this blood sugar monitoring is how different foods, affect us different. So, for example, Jamie might eat a sweet potato and do absolutely fine with it. But Teresa, you may eat one and it immediately spikes you almost like a cookie would, right? And so when women are having trouble with things like PCOS or, inflammation or heavy periods and these types of things, I'm like, we need to really work on that insulin resistance piece. So for me, example, one thing that kind of bugs me about conventional medicine at times is that, our goal is to have your hemoglobin A1C like at 5.3. But over the years, like they'll see people's increasing, like 1 year it's 5.4, then it's 5.6, then it's 5.8. And it has been slowly increasing, but nothing's been said. Nothing has been said to the patient, until it's to the point of pre-diabetes and it's a problem. And then they tell them you either have to, exercise more and eat less or, whatever, change your diet, which is so confusing to people because they don't even know where to start, or they're prescribing metformin, And so the goal with this is when you start to see those numbers increase, like that is the time because that was happening with me. And that is the time to really get on top of this and realize what foods are even healthy foods may be causing you issues. And it's not the point to cut out those healthy foods, but how can we maybe change how we eat those foods so that they don't cause the spike?
I want to bring in the Glucose Goddess, Glucose Revolution,
Yes.
that book. Oh, Sarah, I love that book, Teresa. Well, it's so good. Okay, our listeners obviously love us, clearly, because they're listening to this episode. If you love us, then you're gonna love the Glucose Revolution book, and the Glucose Goddess is the name of the gal. But she talks about food order. She talks about food order. And I love how you're talking too about, Sarah, how we're also unique in how, I get triggered in a world where it's just a one size fits all approach. We just make blanket statements. They're not always true for people. Sometimes, for instance, someone could be an adrenal overload, so stressed out, and then they feel like they need to fast, for instance, for, 12 hours, and they don't know why they're not losing weight, but it's because they heard that that's a rule that you fast for a certain number of hours and it should be good for you. But that's not the case for that woman because of her stress. So everyone is so different. And so that's what I love about this conversation. But what I like about Glucose Goddess is she talks about food order. And I think pretty much it's this idea we're not going to necessarily restrict food, but it's the order in which you eat the food. So her rule is you start with a fiber because you want to keep your blood sugar from spiking. So she's basically just saying if you eat food in a certain order, your blood sugar won't spike like it would if you were to eat a sugar or a carb first off. So it's like how do we clothe our carbs is what she calls it. So fiber first, protein, fat, and then a carb or sugar. But before a carb or sugar, it needs to either be a fat, a protein, a fiber, anything to kind of help balance out that spike. So, Sarah, I know we're going to be wrapping up, and I feel like this interview could go on for ages because there's so much to talk about. But just real quick, do you find that that is helpful when you give that tip to your clients who may feel overwhelmed, maybe have eating disorders in their past? The idea of restricting their food is a trigger. How do you handle that with your clients?
So first of all, I agree with you. I love the Glucose Goddess. I love the Glucose Revolution. And that's what we're working on with our clients is these little blood sugar hacks too, because right, if you, for example, I love she uses the peanut M&Ms one because I love peanut M&Ms, right? If there's a go-to, it's probably for me, it's that. But yeah, she gives the example of she ate peanut M. She basically in this book tests all these different foods and kind of gives her story, like how she learned to hack her metabolism by, changing how her blood sugar spiked and didn't. And so she eats these peanut M&Ms on an empty stomach. And I mean, it's just an immediate spike and an immediate dip, right? Which we want to avoid. We want just small rolling hills all day. Okay. Then she eats, right, exactly how you said. She does fiber first or her veggies first. And then I think she did I want to say she did kind of like a chicken salad. Okay. And then she had her peanut M&Ms and it was significantly less. So she's adding calories, right? So many people are like, oh no, it's more calories. Yeah, but no, she's adding calories and then it is just lowering the amount of sugar that's immediately entering her bloodstream because her body now is processing those other things like the fiber and the protein and the fats first. And then it's going on to the peanut M&Ms that she loves but doesn't want to cut out. And so that's the point. It's like, okay, I can still have the peanut M&Ms, but instead of having them as a snack, I usually say don't have carbs as a snack. Have them as a dessert. Put them at the end of your meal, and you're going to have a way different, picture of your blood sugars throughout the day. And just changing those little things can change their metabolism, change their hormone picture. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's not restrictive. They're probably less hungry because they ate, and now they'll probably eat less of the carbs or the sugar. It's so good. Sara, thank you so much for being on. Again, we could just talk and talk and talk. But I'm going to have to wrap up this episode with you, and I'm going to ask you the question I ask every interviewee. What do you wish every woman knew about her hormone genius?
Yeah, for me, I would say it's just knowing and I'm going to kind of go back to even my own story that symptoms are blessings. We have to understand that when, like, even me, when I was having all those symptoms, it was my body's way of telling me something. So when I was in the pharmacy world, we looked at symptoms as what drug can cover that up? What drug can we band-aid that with? And I was not seeing people get better. So I think you need to look at yourself and your symptoms as, okay, what is God trying to tell me about my body? What is going on that's a deeper level that I can get to the root cause of to actually empower myself and, to feel better and live in the body that He created for me. I think that that's the biggest thing, is seeing symptoms as blessings.
That's a good way to really frame it, Sara. Can you let everyone know how they can get in touch with you, what's your social media, and if they want to work with you as a client, give them all the details of your practice, Nourish.
You bet. So I encourage you to listen to my podcast. It's the Improve Energy for Busy Moms podcast. And my social media, my Instagram handle is at Sara Paxton Nourish. But if people want to book a call with me, I do free discovery calls just to really talk about, what's going on with you, what your struggles are, what your goals are. I explain my program and we really see if we'd be a good fit to work together. And that is callwithsara.com. That's SARA, no H. So yeah, I would encourage people to get a hold of me that way. I have a 12-week, it's the Gain Health, Lose Weight, Grow Closer to Your Creator program, where we just really work on what I feel God intends for our health. And we just really get back to our roots and get women feeling good again. I just truly believe when women feel better, anybody, when we feel better, we do better, and we're better able to live out our purpose. So that is my goal.
Awesome, Sara. Thank you so much for being on the Hormone Genius. We hope to have you on the show again, maybe down the road. So thanks and for giving all of our listeners this incredible information.
Thank you both so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Hormone Genius podcast. Please remember to share our podcast with your friends and family, and also follow us on social media. If you were not aware, we have a YouTube channel. So if you could like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, we would appreciate that. Thank you so much for your support. We are excited to journey alongside you as you discover the beauty and the genius of your hormones.